Right behind me, there's an EF Honda Civic that we got from Pete and Dave. And what are we gonna do, Tanner?
We're gonna build them a brand new exhaust exactly how we want to do it.
Yeah, they have no idea what's about to come. Let's do this. We actually brought Tanner from California, flew him in here specifically to work on this. Now, you guys may remember him from the RX-7 series that we had. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. It's a pretty wicked build series. What are some of the things you worked on that car?
I did a couple things: custom turbo manifold, downpipe exhaust, V-mount, all the charge piping, all HD clamps everywhere, tons of V-bands everywhere, lots of stuff went on, tons of fabrication. And I also gave a lot of tips and tricks to some of you new guys, so be sure to check it out.
We got pretty technical with it, so if you guys want to learn welding and really dive into that, this is the right channel to be on. Now, let's dive into this thing, because I haven't seen it yet, but just looking at it, I'm already seeing some mistakes in like the exhaust of whatever company put this in. It doesn't really matter. You're gonna fix all this.
Yeah, luckily we're gonna, show you guys some of the flaws and then how we're gonna fix some of these things, because, Peter and Dave want nothing but the best. So that's what we're here to do.
They also don't want this Minecraft exhaust.
Yeah, it's a little rough, you got the exhaust shop special over here, the spray painted welds, hose clamps on the hangers because they're all loose and blown out. Just some general flaws that I see a lot of on used cars like this. Luckily underneath it's pretty clean though.
Yeah, so if you're a fabricator, jobs like this come in all the time. You don't really know what you're expecting or what you're gonna get into. Like we said, Pete and Dave bought this sight unseen. They did not, we actually saw this before they did.
Yeah, they had no idea what's even underneath this car, so it's gonna be interesting to tell them.
So as a fabricator, if a customer were to bring this car to you, what are some of the first plans of attack that you'll have when you're putting together an exhaust, knowing you're doing a full exhaust on this, head or back?
Yeah, so luckily most Hondas from, about, 89, 88, give or take, and up to almost 2000, they're relatively similar. It's straight down the middle, they do a 90, they do another 90, they 90 over the control arm, and then you got a big muffler in the back. So thankfully, they're all kind of similar, and I've done a couple of these before, so it's not too foreign to me. But definitely just looking at the exhaust, understanding the lengths that you're dealing with, some of the bends you're gonna need, and just kind of going through there, but also, counting how many hangers you have and making sure you have enough hanger rods is always important. So those are, some of the flaws I've experienced in the past.
Cat, no cat, yep. Resonator, muffler. What about sound? What if a customer wants a specific sound? How do you tackle that?
Well, so Peter and Dave were nice enough to say that they want this thing kind of as quiet as possible. So for this build, I chose a ultra quiet resonator that's gonna go kind of up towards the front in the middle a little bit. That'll help eliminate some of that rasp. And then we also have a single in dual out muffler to replace this thing, because they want kind of the classic nostalgia JDM look with the twin tip over here. So luckily, Vibrant has these new nested bends that are gonna make a super slick, nice, tucked, awesome looking tip setup. It'll be a little bit low key. I think it's gonna look really, really good.
No, I've never seen that before, so I'm interested to see how you're gonna tackle this.
It should be interesting, but I think you guys have faith in me, so.
Yeah, so let's dive under here and check out some of the weird stuff that we found underneath.
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and walk through the exhaust front to back, and we're gonna point out some of the flaws, some of the issues, and just some weird things that are going on with this thing. So as you can see, we got the Minecraft tip. That has to go. Then as we follow this thing around, you have these hangers with the hose clamps, which, obviously they're old and busted, despite how clean, honestly, underneath this car is, that someone took pretty good care of this thing. So as we go down the exhaust, we have this weird spot right around here where, unfortunately, the exhaust is hitting the body. So we'll definitely have to consider that when I'm fabricating the rest of the exhaust system. You can also see towards the front where this resonator is, that's what they want to call that. The hangers are off to the side, so those are going to have to get replaced with new ones because they're not going to hold their shape very well. The front of the car, the header, unfortunately, it just doesn't fit. It actually is hitting this mount right here off the transmission. So what I'm gonna do is build an exhaust that's going to end kind of somewhere in the middle over there, where this one sort of ends a little bit, but I have a couple new parts to throw in there, so I'm gonna incorporate that for them. And luckily, I have another car here that I can kind of guesstimate where the new header is gonna end as well. And I'm not gonna be leaving them high and dry. So now that we got the exhaust all picked apart, I'm gonna show you guys how I plan for a job like this. So we just got the exhaust pulled off and we're gonna start planning out the beginning stages of the new exhaust system for this car. So what we have up here is the ultra quiet resonator that we're gonna be placing kind of somewhere over here. And then we got a piece of mock-up tubing, roughly cut to about where it's gonna wind up sitting. So as you can see, there's plenty of room to run a nice full 2.5-inch exhaust system. So let's go ahead and get a couple things tacked up and keep on going. So we got a couple pieces cut. We're gonna go ahead and tack these straights into the V-bands. That way we can go ahead and tack them into the ultra quiet resonator. So let's go ahead and get this tube purging out for us. So just a couple real light tacks is all you need on this. We don't wanna burn it through too hard in case we gotta cut it off. And that's it. Put our next one on here. Nice tight fit up, of course. Go ahead and reconnect the hose. Pop that plug into the top. Let's go ahead and purge this one out too. There you go, that's that. So now we're gonna put them on the positioner where we have a pre-welded V-band setup that I made. You always wanna make sure that you clamp your V-bands together whenever you weld them, preferably with a little bit of straight tube between them. That way you can have a little bit of a gas barrier inside. It's not super necessary, but definitely make sure that you are putting your V-bands together when you weld them. So we're gonna go ahead and get this set up, get it all purged out, and we're gonna spin it up. So we got the pieces that I just welded back into the ultra quiet, as you can see up here. What I normally do is I'll use something like a digital angle finder. So that way you can make sure that your exhaust is still level to the car. So you always want to get a reference point from the vehicle first. So I always use the inside door sill up here. And then I use that same measurement to make sure my exhaust is staying parallel with the car as I go front to back. One of the worst things to do is, you do your full exhaust system and you realize that it has a really odd tilt to it. So, this is one of those steps that you really want to make sure that you take your time, double check it, triple check it before you weld any hangers or go too far into the process. So as you can see, the rest of the exhaust is going to be pretty simple. We're going to be using a 90-degree bend right here. We're going to 45 it a little bit over, probably use a 60, another 45 up, 45 back over this control arm, and then we're gonna bring it back around with another 90 over here. So let's go ahead and start fabricating and cutting some stuff and see what we can get to fit up. So we got our 90 cut down. We're gonna put a V-band right there, connecting that one up. And that's gonna go a little something like this. So unfortunately, our whole exhaust wiggles a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and weld up the pieces going into the resonator. And we're actually gonna put the two hangers on the front. That way we can kind of set the height of the front of the exhaust and then account for any rise or droop that we need to do back here in order to clear everything. So we're gonna go ahead and do that next. All right, so I'm pretty happy with how this is all coming out so far. So I'm actually gonna go ahead, I'm gonna weld these up, lock these in, and then I'm gonna figure out the 90 so I can adjust the forward and back a little bit. And then I'm gonna throw some hangers on the front, like I said, to help get me to lock in the pitch of the muffler a little bit, and so I can keep going with the rest of the system. So we just finished welding the straight pieces into the ultra quiet resonator. I've got it basically 99% placed of where I want. I got all my angles checked and everything. So now I'm actually gonna put some hangers from the main tube over to these hangers right here that we've placed on the car. I wanna lock in the front position of the exhaust so far, so that way I can pitch the back end to meet up exactly how I want. So let's go ahead and do all that right now. So we got the hanger rods bent up, tacked up, and this is kind of their final resting position for right now. I want to lock in this because I want to be able to pitch the muffler however I want, so the rest of the exhaust going back has the correct angle. But I have to keep in mind the front of this has to be pretty square in order to go forward as well. We don't want to build them an exhaust that's going to point down or point up. So that's why the hanger rods are kind of where they're at right now. We're going to throw a doubler on it later to strengthen it and all that stuff, but this is how it is so far. So as you can see, we got the 90-degree bend tacked into a V-band and placed onto the end of the ultra quiet. It's gonna wrap around the body over here and tuck pretty close to the gas tank, but not too close. And then we got a 45-degree bend that we're gonna be placing right here. Needs a little bit of trimming to fit, but overall it's a really close fit. So we're gonna keep on going with the rest of this project. So as you can see, whenever I do a project like this, I usually have some old pieces from old projects that have varying angles on them, like 9.5 degree, 26 degree, stuff like that. I always try and mark and measure them so I know exactly where it's at. So if I need to change anything, I know if I can go to either a more angled tube or a less angled tube. So I try and do this a little bit. Whenever I have a tube up in there and I kind of like it, I'll play around with the angle, get the rotation right. And then if I don't like it, I'll switch to a higher degree tube to kind of kick it up more or less, depending on which way I'm trying to go. This project in particular, we're trying to go around the gas tank and then up and over the control arm. So we're gonna be using probably a 60-degree bend to go over the control arm. And then we have a 26 degree that I'm going to then cut down a little bit, probably make it around a 24 to 22 degree. We're gonna go ahead and take a look and see what happens. We have the rear suspension compressed in order to ensure that we give enough clearance between the exhaust and the control arm. A lot of cars have this issue, so you always want to make sure that you're double checking all your suspension components, steering components, and all that stuff. So as you can see, we have this 60-degree bend going up and over the rear control arm. It connects pretty good, it gives us lots of room. It also drops it just below the hanger enough where I can get a hanger into there. So I'm pretty happy with all this. We're gonna go ahead and tack up some stuff and keep going. So above me, I have the tube all tacked up, ready to go. I just want to do a final fitment check before I pull it back down and actually weld it up complete. After I weld it up complete, I'm gonna go ahead and put it back up in there, and then I'm gonna fabricate the hanger that's gonna hold this end of the exhaust. Moving forward, we're gonna be moving on to the muffler placement in the very back as well as the tips.
Okay, so I got a question.
Yeah, what's up, Art?
Now I know the answer, but I feel like the audience might not know. The pulsing, why do you use pulse settings on your machine, and why does it do that?
So I like to pulse whenever I do a butt joint on tubing like this. It gives me really good consistency as I go around the tube, and also helps me space my dips just a little bit. I also set the machine kind of where I'm almost gonna be full pedal the whole time, so I kind of cheat, but it's a machine and it's a nice one, so I use it.
One more technical question. I noticed when you start, how many pulses do you wait for, 3, 4 before you start welding? Before you start dipping?
Yeah, it depends how hot the tube is, but yeah, generally between 3 to 5. In the beginning, it'll be about 5 or 6 when the tube's a little bit cold in the joint, and towards the end, it'll only be about 3 pulses before it burns in, and then I just get moving, so.
Do you count the pulses in your head, or are you looking for a puddle?
No, I usually count the pulses. As it pulses more and more, the puddle widens, and I just kind of match the diameter of the old puddle to the new puddle. So that way you get a nice consistent bead. Hopefully most of this is all pretty consistent, so.
Looks pretty good.
Thanks.
I'll let you get back to it.
All right, cool. So while the back of the exhaust is cooling off right now that it has welded up, we're gonna go ahead and deal with the front of the exhaust, and we're gonna connect the header to the flex section that I already installed onto a V-band. We're gonna do this with a couple little slip pieces, This section isn't going to be permanent because they're planning on changing the motor to a completely different setup as well as the header. So I'm just making it work for right now, but also letting them have an easy way to change it up later. So let's go ahead and throw this in and show you guys what I'm talking about.
Got a quick question for you.
Yeah, what's up, Art?
Why did you choose to run the lightweight flex?
Well, I was told this was going to be a race car. So they wanted it to be quiet, but they also needed that flexible movement in the system in order to not break any welds and kind of allow all that movement that you want on a race car. It also applies to a street car, but I want to make sure that they're taken care of 100%.
Kind of just to backtrack a little bit, when we say flex, is it for heat expansion or is it just for vibration?
It's for everything. And these are the new lightweight flex sections. They actually have the turbo liner on the inside, but a lighter outer braid. So they allow a little bit more external movement, but still give you the nice tight internal locking of all of the mechanism inside.
Cool.
So this is the finished piece that's gonna go between the ultra quiet and the header. This features the lightweight flex, which honestly welds up really good. So I was really happy with that. I didn't use a positioner like I normally do, but even by hand, it still welds really good. So let's go ahead and throw this in.
Do you recommend a specific way of welding the layers? Like, do you pre-weld the layers first and then butt joint weld it, or do you just do everything at once?
So a lot of guys have a lot of opinions about how to weld a flex section. My personal opinion these days is to just put the tube in there and blast it. I've tried welding it before, I've tried sanding it, I've tried prepping it. Honestly, it just kind of always doesn't weld that great. So this one was zero prep, straight out of the box. I threw it in there and welded it, and it looks pretty good.
So your settings of how you were welding the tube in comparison to these, did you have to crank anything up to get a little bit more heat?
No, actually, I used my same 85 amp setting that I did on the V-bands that I did on the flex section. I didn't use a pulse, didn't do anything crazy, just, you know, the BBW cup, lots of gas flow, and I purged from the inside, obviously. But no, nothing too crazy, honestly.
Cool, looks really good, man.
Yeah, thanks. So as you can see, the next step of the process was to place the hanger onto the rear end of the exhaust that goes over the control arm. We wanted to try and wrap it around just a little bit to give it a little bit more support, which we were able to do. After that, we tacked up a couple pieces that goes from the V-band into the muffler. This is one of those situations where a pie cut really came in handy due to the angles of everything and not having the muffler placed before I did the over the control arm bend. I had to make some adjustments, and so the pie cut was actually the quickest, simplest, and easiest solution for the issue I had. It was able to kick the exhaust to meet up perfectly with the bend, shooting right into the muffler. So far, I'm really happy with the clearance between the exhaust, the gas tank, the e-brake cables, the control arm, the shock, the body. It's all flowing through real nice, and it should look really good once it's all said and done. So we got the muffler placed, and now it's on to the hardest part of any exhaust job, doing the tips. So what I chose for this project was the new nested bends by Vibrant. Now, you're probably wondering, what's a nested bend? Well, when you get the right size centerline radiuses, they stack perfectly into each other. But if you have a situation where, you might not have it perfect, as you can see, this is a 4-inch and this is a 5-inch center line. They don't stack perfectly, but they do still stack really, really good. So they give you a lot of options. The different radiuses also cover different amounts of area. So if you have the room to do a nice big long radius on something like an exhaust or a tip or something, that's a great application. What I'll be doing is taking 2 of these, probably spacing them out just a little bit so I have a little bit of a gap between the tips as they exit the bumper. And then I'll have to also kick them down a little bit which with having them nested like that, it allows me to kick them at basically almost the exact same angle as they're gonna go down into the tubes that are gonna come out of the muffler. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this is all kind of gonna turn out. So even though the ICE Engine Works kit isn't the exact same size as the tubing I'm using the similar radius in order to get me kind of close to where I want to be. So this ends up being about a 37-degree cut right there. Both of these are within about 36.5 to 37 degrees, so it's really close. It's gonna be more than enough for this project. So we're gonna put these into the muffler, and then our next piece will swoop around to the outside. Almost there, we are so close.
That's pretty much done, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that's a wrap for this.
Actually, you hear that?
What?
I think Dave's here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, everyone. It's an exciting day. So nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you, man.
I've heard many nice words from the guys at Vibrant about your fabricating skills, so I'm here to inspect.
Awesome.
I'm gonna give you a mark from 1 to 100.
Cool, let's do it.
And right now, I'm already in the 90s. Wow, this is super rad. I mean, you saw the exhaust tip we started with.
Yeah, I'm not much on Minecraft, so.
It was horrendous. This is super cool. I love the way you've sort of paired them so nicely. That has got like old school vibes with just a nice simple tip.
Yeah, nice JDM look to it.
I
The
love it.
nested bends really allow me to kind of tuck it up nice and tight, so.
Nested bends. What are nested bends?
You have to wait and find out.
I gotta educate myself. Okay, and the rest of it, man, it looks so good. It's
Yeah.
all V-banded.
V-banded for ease of use.
Fits up super tight under here. Wow, a nice big resonator.
Yeah, I heard you guys wanted it quiet, despite the
you
fact
know,
that it's gonna be hitting VTEC all the time. But
I'm an old man. I need something that sounds mature, you know?
Okay,
mature,
okay.
as we say around here.
Yeah.
But I still want to rip tech and have it sound good, which I'm sure this will do. Is this 2.5-inch diameter?
yep, all 2.5.
Okay. And this flex joint looks new to me. I don't recognize
Yeah,
this.
that's their new lightweight flex joint.
Okay.
Welds up super good too, so hopefully you guys use those on all the other cars.
Awesome. And obviously you had to neck it down here a bit
Yeah.
to, join it to the non-party piece in the front, but we're going to fix that.
Yeah, we want to keep it slow for you in the beginning until you get that real motor in here.
This is the no-tech setup, and we're going to switch it to the VTEC
It's a no-tech setup,
Wow,
absolutely.
man, you absolutely killed it. Thank you so much for doing this for us.
Yeah,
It's
no problem,
I'm
man.
super excited to hear how it sounds once we put that proper VTEC motor in there.
Yes.
I mean, I said I was going to be a score to 1 to 100. I'm going I got to leave you a little room, so I'm just
Okay.
going to go 99.9. You good with that?
I appreciate that.
We can be friends?
Yeah.
Sweet, man. This looks so good. You got to go to the airport, don't you? It's like you're late for your flight.
Yeah, so there's that weird thing called an airplane that's leaving here real soon, so.
Well, thanks again, man.
Hey.
You killed it. You
Thank
killed
you.
it.
Appreciate the opportunity, man.
Domo arigato, Mr. Rabato. Oshimase, and get to the airport.